Hi guys, Sharpe here, and just recording this a couple of days after the L2M double, which was the Liverpool to Manchester 100 mile. So it's an out and back 100 mile race. You do 50 miles out on the Transpennine Trail, you do 50 miles back. So on the whole the course is pretty flat. There's a couple of bridges and things, but there's definitely no major hills. It mainly runs on canal path and disused rail track and that sort of thing. So on the whole it's a pretty good surface. There's the odd bit that's a bit gravelly, there's occasional bits of tarmac where you've got to pass through towns and things, but on the whole pretty nice. And for the goal I had, it was an ideal course, and it's pretty close to home also, which meant I could get out and check the route over, practice on the route a bit, so I didn't get lost, and also got the advantage of just knowing where you are and that sort of thing. So, going to do a quick Q&A. I might do another video on the race, but for now I'll just do a quick Q&A. So, in the race, I finished in 13 hours and 57 minutes 40 whatever seconds. So it'll probably come out at 13:58 when they put the results up with the times if they're rounded. So it's just over 8-minute mile, just over 5-minute kilometre pace now on average. And in terms of my goals, I did really want to get under 14 hours. I would have been disappointed without. Ultimately, I do want to go faster, but I think with everything you probably will. So I had a few ideas on pacing. I pretty much worked out the paces from a 12:59 time up to a 13:59 time. So being at pretty much just under 13, a 13 and a half, and just under 14. So I didn't go any further than that. I would have been pretty disappointed had it taken me longer than 14 hours, which in reality 3 or 4 minutes longer and I would have been over. It's a bit irrational really to get disappointed by the 4 minutes, but just to get something starting with a 13 was what I was really after. So conditions on the day, pretty good. It was nice and dry, underfoot mostly, apart from the heavy rainstorm. So for the majority of the route it was dry, but there was a section for me just after halfway where we had a really heavy downpour and some thunder and lightning, which made it very wet, so literally soaked, which was actually quite welcoming and cooled me down a little bit. So a lot of people said about the heat. It was warm. It's, I don't know what temperature, but 20 something degrees, which over here is quite warm for what we normally get. So a lot of people have asked various questions. One of them was, with the heat, how do you cope with the heat? So me personally, I slowed down a little bit in the hottest part of the day. I drank, made sure I kept enough fluids going in. I did make an effort to drink more than I normally would, just to keep on top of things. You want to have a look at electrolytes. So if you're not using any at all and you're just drinking pure water, then you might find that there's an issue with your electrolytes, which can cause dehydration and things like that. Other thing as well, I did go in the river. I did go and lay in the river. I also jumped in, I think it was Chorlton Water Park, it might have been Sale Water Park, but one of the duck ponds, I went in there and just lay in there for maybe 30 seconds, 45 seconds, just to cool down. I was that hot. And at the halfway point, because I arrived quite quickly, there wasn't really, they'd set up the sort of track around the field to run round, and the people were there, but they hadn't sort of prepared anything like a checkpoint, so there wasn't any food out or anything like that, or drinks. So there was a tap outside the sports hall, so I sat under the tap with my head under the water, just completely soaked myself, cooled down, and I drank an amount of water at the tap as well, just to sort of get my temperature down and freshen up again. After that I had to rummage around in a van to find my drop bag, and once I got hold of that I pretty much just filled my bum bag up with gels and things like that. So food and drink, in the whole race I carried a 500ml bottle, which is what I used, and then I had a squashy bottle, which was I can't remember what brand, but I had a squashy bottle which I just scrunched up and put in the bag just to meet the compulsory kit requirements, although I never actually used that one because I just had the 500ml with checkpoints being quite close together, maybe sort of 6, 7, 8 miles, something like that. It was okay. So I had probably around about 20 cups of Coke, and I probably averaged about 1 gel per hour. I probably had somewhere around about 12 gels, maybe a little bit more. I might have had sort of up to 15, but somewhere around 12 to 15 gels, and about 6 powdered sachets, which are basically carbohydrate powders. The problem with those, they're difficult to actually open when your hands are a bit slippery, particularly when it's rained. So they were actually quite difficult. I thought it would be dead easy, just tip the powder into your bottle and away you go. But with it being a bit windy, the powder's blowing everywhere, and I had to sort of stop and do it and fumble around, and I couldn't get some of them open. So that was actually quite difficult, which I would have expected to be easier. And when you're running, most of them actually go frothy and bubbly. So you get a bit of fluid, but it just turns to bubbles, and it's very difficult to actually drink them. So maybe I won't use them again, but we'll see. I probably had about 3 to 4 litres of water through the whole thing, along with the cups of Coke. So that's 3 to 4 litres that I mixed with the powdered sachets and stuff like that. So roughly that's what I took in. And as I say, with the heat, the best way to cope with that is just to slow down a little bit. You've just got to adjust your pace. And if you're not used to it, it's going to be a big shock. If you live somewhere where it's really warm, then you'll be more used to it. You can adapt to it. But if you're just not used to it, you've just got to slow down. You've just got to take your time. In terms of kit, I ran with a waist belt, just with all the compulsory kit in. I just carried the bare minimum, plus my own gels and powder sachets and things like that. Navigation, didn't really need to navigate because I know the trail. I did the 50-mile route in April just to get a feel for the route, see how it felt. And I also have done a few recce's around and about, so I was pretty much certain of the route and knew the way. Next question that's been asked a lot is how to actually train for it. Well, I could do a whole topic on that. Could speak for hours on it, which I'm not going to do. But you basically need to give you a few quick pointers. You need to look at what your actual goal is, and then where you are at the moment, and then work out what's in that gap between you. So you need to make sure you've got enough time, but you also need a clear goal to be able to train for it. So if you just think, right, I want to be an ultra runner, and that's it, that's your goal, then it's pretty vague. It doesn't really give you any clues on how to get there. Obviously you've got to run the distance, but it's so vague that it's not a lot of help. At the same time, you do need to, if you've got a particular goal in mind, a particular race, you can then plan how much time you have, what distance you'll need to be able to run, and if you look at honestly where you're at the moment, you can then start to work out, what's in between you and the goal. If anyone wants any help, just give me a message, let me know. I'm happy to have a chat in a bit more detail. But for now, just this video is going to be a quick run through, so it's already going to go quite long as it is. Sleep. I didn't need to sleep in the race because I wasn't out in the dark, and even in the longer ultras when I am out in the dark, so if I do a mountainous 100-mile race, it might take me through a night or maybe 2 nights. I don't sleep in the races, just carry on. Did I really go swimming? It wasn't swimming, but I did lay in the pond and I did lay in the river, and it did feel really good. Time, so my actual finish time was 13:57, 13:58, depending on how they round it, and so it was just under the 14 hours. Would I like to go faster? Yes, in the future, but I'm not too bothered about just shaving off a few minutes. If I'm going to do another similar effort, then I want to go a decent bit faster and at least go into the race a lot fitter. So how am I going to get faster on 100 mile? Well, on the day it felt like my best effort. I was running what I could in those conditions and with the fitness I had. At one point I was dropping below the 14-hour sort of target pace, so I did the first half in about 6 hours 30, and then I stopped back. So first 50 miles in about 6:30, which for the first half I didn't look at my watch for pacing because I didn't want to get caught up trying to chase a certain time or a certain pace. So the first half I ran it by feel, and looking back over on Strava, There were some kilometres which gone quite quick, where I was dropping below 7-minute mile pace. Some of them might have been slightly downhill perhaps, or just on the really good, patches of terrain, but it felt easy at the time. I was wary that I was probably running, a little bit faster in the first half than I would in the second, which was part of the plan. So in my head, I'd figured out if I got to the first half and turned around by about 6 hours 15 and felt really good, then I'd probably be in with a chance of going for a low 13-hour time. And I thought if I'm getting towards sort of 6.5 and maybe the weather's getting to me, or temperature, or if I'm just feeling fatigued, then I'm probably going to be closer to 14. So for me, the hardest bit was probably between 40 miles and about 65 miles. That section there was I was getting very hot, and I had to keep getting in and out of the water as much as I could just to cool down. So that did affect my pace, but if I hadn't done that, I think I would have gone slower anyway, just because I was getting so hot. So, happy with how it went. But like you say, when you look back, there's always little bits you think, I could just shave off a bit of time there, and if I wasn't, doing that. I did do some videos while I was running, and I would have done some more had my phone battery been a bit more lively. It was running pretty low, so I wanted to keep it in case of emergencies later on. But I don't think they affect my pace at all. It's literally just press a button, hold the phone, and I'm just running along in the first half at a pretty casual pace. It's a little bit weird because you've trained for quite a while for a big race, and then you actually set off. It just feels like a really easy run because obviously you've got such a long distance. So with the actual the pace, you've just got to be patient. It will feel a bit too easy to start with, but for my pacing strategy, that was just the plan. Some people like to run fast while they can and hang on, because pretty much everyone will slow down in a 100 miler from the first 50 to the second 50, assuming the course is similar. So really, you've just got to be patient. Your legs will catch up with you eventually. And in my head, I didn't want to go sort of too slow that it would put me on, bordering whether I'd make it. And at the same time, I didn't want to go too fast so that I'd be ruined in the second half. So I did it by feel, and possibly if I looked at the watch, I might have slowed down a little bit, which might have helped me, conserve some energy. But I was feeling pretty good. I don't think my energy levels really dipped too much. There was some little areas where I felt like I was just struggling a little bit, but I actually finished really well. The last sort of, from Warrington to the end, the last sort of 30 miles were probably feeling the best out of any of them, and I was really moving quite well again towards the end. So I was a bit wary that with about an hour to go, I knew I had around about 11.5, maybe 12k to the finish. So I was wary of that, and I was focused on just trying to keep going, because at one point I was sort of looking, thinking it's kind of going to look like a 14:15, so like 14 hours and 15 minutes time, and I didn't want to try that hard and go that far and come up just a few minutes short. So next one, I did a video just last week which had a pacing chart which I'd just written out. So for the different times I mentioned earlier, I just broke it down into the sort of splits in a column, just to get an idea of what time would be at what distance based on those different things. So I didn't take that with me. I didn't have any kind of plan to memorize it. I just literally made it out and had a little look. So that just gave me an idea. I can't remember at the time, what I was doing at certain checkpoints, but I was just doing that more to give an overview. I wasn't trying to run, every 10 mile split the same or anything like that. A lot of people asked, did I think about quitting? So I was running pretty well, felt comfortable, and it never even crossed my mind to think about dropping out or dropping down or anything. It's probably, for some people who are perhaps chasing the cut-offs, that's probably a little bit more of a concern. Are you going to run and are you going to get timed out? So me personally, I didn't, but there are times in races where you just think, wow, this is getting hard work. But having trained pretty well, I was feeling fairly confident that I would finish, bar some sort of external event or something a bit weird happening. What's next? I'm actually entered in a race on Friday evening called Escape from Meriden, which you've got 24 hours to run as far away as possible from Meriden. I'm not sure how far I'm going to run yet. Not going to give anything away there. I might walk into a hotel and have a 30-mile jog on Saturday morning, or I might run all the way home, which happens to be just over 100 miles. Who knows? Or maybe even run a little bit further to my grandma's, which would give me about 130 miles. Who knows? Could I have done better in the 100-mile race? Well, looking back, you always sort of see things where you think, oh, I could have shaved off a minute or two there, or just done that a bit quicker. One of the issues I had was the checkpoints, because there was nearly a 4-hour gap behind me to second place. It was about 3.5 hours, 3:45, something like that near the end. There wasn't going to be anyone to sort of do the checkpoints for that whole time, so the organisers were kind enough to come and drop me off water and things, and go to a few places, and then they could obviously go back to deal with everyone else and the rest of the field. So it was nice, I wasn't left on my own, but there was 1 or 2 spots in the middle where I was just running. I was running on my own for most of the day, really. I didn't really get a chance to run with anyone. There was a few people who were out on the trail by coincidence, and they did a few miles, on the trail, and I was sort of using them to try and catch up with, and things like that. And there was a few cyclists who said hello. And there was loads of people who I know from various different running groups, nearby, who came out and supported and cheered, and obviously all the marshals and crew were fantastic, just really helpful and encouraging. So great to see that. And the other good thing about this particular course, because you're coming back the same way you went out, you get to meet all the other runners, which for me I thought was really good. It's nice to see people and just offer what encouragement I could. I wasn't very talkative perhaps at some times, but everyone seemed in good spirits. It was great. If you're perhaps near the tail end, it might be a bit demotivating sometimes seeing other people, but you've just got to focus on your own race and do your own thing. We've all got different goals. There's always going to be someone faster, there's always going to be someone slower, but you're out there doing it, that's the main thing. It doesn't matter whether you're winning or whether you're last or whether you're doing anything else. It's just about getting around the distance for a lot of us, and that's all part of the fun. So that's pretty much the questions have been asked. There's probably a few more, but I just jotted down a few. What else? I've got a nice buckle. So if you like your medals and your bling, get one of those. So really nice. And little trophy as well. So yeah, that's basically my quick Q&A for the race. In terms of position, I was the first person to finish, which is the first year this race has been on, so I think technically it'll be a course record, but hopefully someone will go back and run even faster next time. In terms of my actual goals, so I'm going to be running more like more like I normally run, and sticking to some more mountainous races in the coming months. So I've got a few trips abroad, and going back to the Prženj Ultra in Bulgaria. I've got the Jaharina race in Bosnia, and a couple of others, coming up. So later this year, going to Australia and New Zealand, and also got a couple of races out of there, which we'll talk about near the time. So yeah, in terms of my goals for the future, it's pretty much to go back into the mountain running, and just sort of see what's happened in terms of my speed. I've been running faster than ever, and it's still improving, so I want to try and take more speed into the mountainous races that I would normally do. And yeah, perhaps later this year I might focus again on the speed again, work on getting my marathon time down. If I can get that to like low 2:30s or so, then it's going to make the pacing ultras feel much easier. So I'll not go on too much. There's loads of different things involved with the training, and hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Just a little bit of an insight, just answer some of the questions that I've been getting asked. And yeah, really sort of overwhelming really how many people have sent me messages or said well done or anything like that. And obviously well done to all the other runners who took part and maybe tried, maybe you've got to go back again next year with some unfinished business. or maybe, maybe you did finish but you just want to do it a little bit quicker. So, take your time, relax, recover, and we'll speak to you soon. Cheers guys, let us know if you've got any other questions, just drop them in the comments, and I'd be happy to answer, or maybe even do another video if there are loads of questions. So we'll talk soon, see you later.